Our text is Matthew 28:18 through 20, which is commonly referred to as the Great Commission. It is here where Jesus gives his last words to his disciples before ascending into heaven. Now, final words are important, so what is the main idea of these final words? A common trend today is to put emphasis on the word go in verse 19, as many pastors and Christian leaders alike have encouraged their congregations to, go! Stop standing around! Get out there! What are you waiting for? Do what the Lord Jesus has commanded. I agree that going is vital for the spreading of the gospel of Jesus Christ, but is this really where emphasis should be placed? Did Jesus want his disciples to walk away with the word go bouncing around in their heads? To answer this question, we must first understand a hermeneutical concept known as verbal priority. Verbal priority is the understanding that the verbal idea of a text takes precedence over the noun ideas and the connectors or conjunctions. It is also important to understand that not all verbs hold the same merit. In Greek, standard verbs take priority over both infinitives and participles. However, these verbs do not stand alone, but relate to one another by either setting the verbal idea or working from the idea that has already been established. Moving forward, it is significant to comment on the ability to recognize these verbs in English. Some types of verbs can only be recognized in Greek or Hebrew. Should we all learn Greek or Hebrew then? Or is there another way? Well, yes, there is, through the use of visual filters like Bible software like Logos. Visual filters are a tool in Bible software that allows the user to see what parts of speech are being presented in any given text. This is an excellent resource for any Bible study and can prove to be more fruitful than years of study of the original biblical languages. Looking back on Matthew 28:18 through 20 with this new understanding of verbal priority, let's now examine some of the parts of speech present in this passage. Go is actually a passive participle, while make disciples is an imperative verb which gets priority. Therefore, the focus of the verbal idea in this passage is to make disciples and not on the word go. Making disciples is the main focus, but this verb does not stand alone due to the concept of verbal priority. The other two participles that follow, baptizing and teaching, stem off the action make disciples. The question I am answering is, what does making disciples look like exactly? Well, the text describes this through the flow of verbal procession. The task of making disciples involves both baptizing and teaching people obedience to all of what Jesus has commanded. Jesus wanted his disciples walking away with the act of making disciples in their minds, not simply going. This text has personally changed my life by causing me to reflect on how many times I have just gone in the name of spreading the gospel. I was so focused on going that I often neglected to think about what I would do when someone accepted the gospel. This left me unprepared to make disciples. Many times, we are so quick to go and tell people about the gospel that we don't know what to do next. We hand them a tract with no plan to follow up. We give them the gospel, don't offer a telephone number. We ask for their time, but are often not willing to give up our own in return. We are not called to make converts. We are called to make disciples of Jesus Christ. Making disciples is not something that happens overnight. As the text says, teach them to follow all that Christ has taught you. Jesus taught a great deal in the book of Matthew, and this requires time to be shared. A necessary application from this text is to understand that the Great Commission is not about jumping on a plane to save Africa. The Great Commission is about making disciples of all nations by spending time with people, baptizing them and teaching them in the commandments of Jesus. To wrap up, studying Matthew 28:18 through 20 with verbal priority has revealed that the Great Commission is not about simply going, but making disciples through the giving of one's time by baptizing people and teaching these people of all of what Christ has commanded.